Hello, and welcome to the SaWGuy podcast.
Like scary movies? What's your favorite scary movie?
Here's Johnny.
We'll tear your soul apart.
The boogeyman is real, and you found him.
Game over, man. Game over.
What do you want?
I want to hear you scream.
Welcome to the SaWGuy podcast. As always, I'm the Saw. Oh, fuck. Alright, we back on? Alright, there we are. Here we are. SaWGuy here. Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. But as always, I'm the SaWGuy, and welcome to the SaWGuy podcast show. I'm your SaWGuy, the host. Anyways, we've got a very special episode today. Episode number 13. One of my other favorites. I had to put this in here as my favorite. You know why? Because 13 is one of my favorite numbers. And I'm going to talk about one of my other favorite movies called They Live. Ooh. A lot of people forget about this movie. This movie is one of the greatest, most underrated horror films, sci-fi horror films out there right now. And it still holds up today. It really is. And I'm excited to talk about it. I'm just like thinking of so much shit right now. Like, oh man. But anyways, let's get started, right? So if you never heard of this movie's called They Live. And it was made in 1998 by good old John Carpenter. One of the masters of horror, actually. You know, he was the one who did Halloween, The Thing, all that. But anyways, They Live. I'll explain the story in a second, but he got the idea from a cartoonist, and he was one of those political cartoonists, this guy who wrote it out. I forgot his name. What the hell? I wrote it down. Can't remember his freaking name. I wrote it down on these notes, but eh. But anyways, the story was called 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was a political cartoon that basically showed how people are being controlled by aliens, right? So John Carpenter, he got this idea and said, why not we do a film and have people living with aliens, but no one knows. Like a secret society thing. Illuminati, I guess. You know? But anyways, when he wrote that story, oh shit, like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because that movie was so damn good. Yeah, good acting in there too. Yeah, Roddy Piper, Keith David, Meg Foster, George Buck Flowers. That name isn't a household name, but if you remember the bum off of, what movie was it? He played a bum in every movie. Wishmaster, he played a bum in Back to the Future. Damn crazy drunks, you know. But anyways, he's in this movie, and he basically showed his good acting chops in it. I was actually really impressed. But anyways, the whole movie, what it's about, if you've never seen it, if you're a horror fan, you know what I'm talking about, right? But anyways, with the movie, what it's about, basically it follows Roddy Piper's life. He's a drifter. He can't find work where he's from, so he drifts into this new town. They never said what the town was. They never said Roddy Piper's name. But everybody always referred to Roddy Piper as Nada. You know, for nothing, you know. They never referred to it anywhere in the movie, but just in the credits. But anyways, it follows Roddy Piper's character. And he's a drifter. Goes, you know, from his home state to another home state, which looks like L.A. And basically, he's trying to look for work. He can't find any work, so he basically goes to this construction site and says, hey, let me work, you know, for pay or whatever. You don't have to pay me or anything. So he starts working and everything. Then he becomes friend with Keith David, who is also in the movie. Shit, I forgot. I forgot his actual name in the movie, but anyways, Keith David is his, like, buddy or whatever. They become friends after working hard and everything. And then basically, once the job site was done, the job site manager, he was like, okay, you bum, you can't sleep your ass here. You got to go find a place to sleep, then come back to work, you know? So Keith David offered him, hey, I'm going to this homeless shelter camp. You want to come follow me? And so he basically was following right behind Keith David the whole time, didn't talk to him. And they had not a little bit of a scuffle, but more or less like, I don't take shit from you, you don't take shit from me kind of thing. Tough guy, right? So Roddy Piper goes to this homeless shelter. Well, it's like this camp, really. And he basically gets food, helps them out, and does all that. And the homeless shelter is run by this church across the street. As he's walking over there, he starts seeing like this reverend who's blind, and he starts talking about, they're taking over. These people, they live on amongst us, and they're wasting and feeding away on our work and our wealth and everything. And, you know, so he gets a little curious, and he starts seeing things. Like, he's awake at 4 in the morning, and then he basically snoops in on this this church that's right next to the homeless camp. Anyways, he goes in there, and he starts seeing that people are talking. He sees that no one's singing in there at 4 in the morning. And he starts seeing all these boxes. He starts questioning it, but he's like, alright, fuck it, whatever. Next day comes rolling around. He basically, you know, starts talking to Keith David and said, hey, something fishy's going on. Later on that night, that's when the cops come in, they bust it, and they destroy the camp, being assholes and everything. That's how it was, you know. But there's a point to it. There's a point, right? So the whole story goes, Roddy Piper finds out that there's something big to it. He goes into not the homeless shelter, what was it? The mission, or not the mission, what the hell? I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. He goes into the church. He finds out what the hell's in these boxes, and it ends up being sunglasses. And he takes it to, you know, the side of this alleyway, puts it in there, and then he starts putting on these sunglasses, and he starts seeing everything in black and white. And then he starts to realize, whoa, what the fuck? And then you start seeing everything with these aliens have subliminal messages hidden in everything. From billboards that say obey, dollar bills that say, this is your God, random shit. And the whole story follows Roddy Piper, how he discovers everyone around him is not who they are. You know, they're aliens living amongst us. But normal people can't see them without the sunglasses, because you find out later in the movie that there's a signal on top of the TV station, the main TV station, and basically it bends the light rays or whatever, so that way us normal humans, we couldn't see them unless you have like special sunglasses that can bend light and all this shit. So the whole story goes is that he's trying to tell everybody about it, you know, and then eventually the aliens, they find out, and they have these walkies on their watches. So they basically tell everybody, hey, we got one that can see. So they basically target him. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie was when the cop was fucking with them. He goes up to him and he says, where'd you get those glasses? The Tooth Fairy. You know? It was just fucking funny. The whole story goes, he kills the cops, takes the gun, he's trying to run from everybody, he goes into the bank, and then that comes that main iconic line, I am here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I am all out of bubblegum. That just, whoa, that, you know, I guess you could classify this movie as action because it had a lot of the gung fu and everything in there, but he starts shooting up the people that were aliens, you know, and people, they don't know that he's actually shooting aliens because they can't see it, you know. Then eventually he tries to run. He runs into Meg Foster. He takes her as hostage to go back to her place. And she basically tells him, hey, I work at that TV station. She tries to kill him, knocks him out of her house. He basically finds Keith David. Keith David says, hey, everyone's looking for you. Then they have this whole 10... I exaggerate. It looks like 10 minutes of just like fighting. And it was real fight. It was just like, ugh, rest for a little bit, and then they're like all tired out, body slam, all that shit, you know? And eventually he gets Keith David in on it, shows him the sunglasses, they start hiding out, then they start meeting in with the people, you know, that kind of understood everything, that got raided on at the homeless camp. Then basically they said, okay, meet up with us, we're going to talk about it. Meg Foster, they don't say it, but I mean, it's kind of implied that she basically works with him as a spy. And her name in that movie was Holly. So the whole time he's all talking to Keith David, oh, I gotta talk to her, oh, I gotta take care of her, you know? Then eventually they find out some of the secret weapons, they, you know, get machine guns and shit. They go in there, they get transported into the TV station. They meet up with George Buck, the homeless guy who plays a homeless guy in every, you know, 80s horror films and everything like that, or 80s films. And he basically is all cleaned up, which is funny, you know? And he plays the different character where he's like, hey boys, you can get a good piece of that pie, you know? And what he meant by is that if you figured out that they're aliens, they basically bought you off. They basically said, join us, either we'll kill you or you join us and we give you money and you have wealth. And he basically escapes and transports out of there or whatever. But before he does all that, he shows them all around the secrets. How these aliens have been on Earth for a long time. They've been taking over us, right? And eventually, when he transports out, they start going on this shooting range where they try to find the satellite. Meg Foster ends up finding them. He thinks that she's working with him. You know, they're going to go and stop the satellite. But she actually kills Keith David. There's a standoff where he's like, okay, do I destroy this, you know, satellite, whatever, so people sees? And basically, you know, he shoots it. Meg Foster shoots him. He shoots her. And, you know, end of movie when the satellite breaks off and then everybody sees who they really are, how they're all aliens. But this movie, to me, is one of my favorites because it still holds up today. There's a lot of rumors with this movie, how it's speculated that I'm not a racist or anything like that, but there was, for the longest time, people were saying that it's about Jerusalem and the people from Jerusalem, how they're controlling the American population and this and this and that. It became a rumor so rampant, John Carpenter actually tweeted it out last year and said, hey, this movie had nothing to do about it. It was about Reaganomics and everything that was going on in the 80s. So, yeah. I don't know how the hell people got that, but I think this movie still holds up today because you never know how it is in real society. You never know who you can trust, you know? And that's what's really cool about this movie, because basically you see what you want to see, like tunnel vision, but at the same time there's something different about somebody. You know, there's always the skeletons in the closet, and that's what I loved about this movie, because it basically showed that you have a society that's living amongst us. We don't know about it, but they're taking over little by little. So basically, they're making their people wealthy. They're pushing, well, not pushing. They're basically kicking all the people that are like normal alien, or not aliens, normal human beings off the planet. And they're basically like taking over our jobs and everything. And not too many people know about it. And I like that movie because it plays in a lot of what's going on in our society. I guess you can say this movie is more of a social horror film now because of the fact of how odd and how different it is. And to me, it still holds up. It really does, because everyone forgets about this movie. And this is why I say it's underrated, because you used to see this movie all the time on TV, you know, like local TV channels and shit like that. They would play it on a Sunday or on a Saturday or whatever, you know. It's kind of like a time filler, but you don't see it anymore unless people really know about it. And it was Roddy Piper's acting debut, I think it was. And basically the whole movie, when it first came out, it pushed a lot of buttons on the American agenda. You know, everything from people going crazy and stuff. And they even said that in the movie, too, where George Buck, he was the homeless guy. He basically said, oh yeah, people are going crazy, going into banks and shooting people and doing this and doing that. And they never really explained it until you figure out that's what happened with Roddy Piper's character. He basically discovered that there's aliens living amongst us secretly, and they're trying to basically invade us, you know? And it still holds up to me because, I mean, look at the shit we're going through right now as a society. Everyone's going crazy with gun rights. Everyone's going crazy with social equality rights. You know, all this stuff. Who knows, maybe it's the aliens taking over. Ooh, right? Or they're trying to get us to fight amongst us like in the movie. You know, but I mean, it's one of those movies that makes you think, whoa, you know? Like, could this really happen? And John Carpenter, he was a fucking master of horror. Master of suspense and thrill. And it's still, to me, like, that's, I don't know if you could really say it's action-packed. I mean, there is a little bit of action, there's a little bit of gun action and things like that, but, you know, it makes you question a lot of things. It's very eerie and very similar to how it is. Because, I mean, this movie was filmed in 1988, actually. So before all the social issues that came up with Rodney King and everything, police brutality, all that stuff going down. And this movie focused on all of that. But there was a reason behind it, is because there was aliens trying to take over our world as humans, you know? And what was cool about it is that they kept that mystery going. Why do they want to come here? We're a third world country to them, that's all. And basically they're a super high advanced alien life form that just wanted to take over. That's all it was, you know? and it was really interesting, it really was. But, you know, there's a lot of little tidbits into it. I was reading up on IMDb and doing all my research, and within the first 2 minutes of the movie, they give it away. And it's a trip, because I was like, no, that's bullshit, right? They actually do. There's a scene where Roddy Piper's walking, and he stops and looks at all these televisions, and it shows Mount Rushmore. And then you have, I think it was Abraham Lincoln and George Washington towards the end. They were both wearing sunglasses staring at each other. So it was kind of a wink to what was going to happen and things like that. John Carpenter does put that in some of his films, but obviously he hasn't done anything really recent, unless it's the new Halloween remake that's coming out. But I thought it was pretty interesting how they did that. And the fact that John Carpenter came up with this from one political cartoon story. Fucking amazing, right? You know, who would ever think that aliens would live amongst us like that? You know, and as a social world that we live in right now, it's scary as shit because there's still police brutality going on. There's still people going crazy, and it's a different type of horror, but it's a horror that's realistic. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below, guys, because I know you guys are probably thinking, what the fuck, this guy's crazy, you know? No, I'm not crazy. There's a meaning to this movie. Somewhere down the line, you know, I really enjoy horror films, so we all know that, right? But, you know, there's a lot of little interesting things, and this movie is still iconic, but it doesn't get, you know, listed as iconic. And, you know, point taken, I'm going to talk about that fight scene. That fight scene actually was officially 5 minutes and 20 seconds long. It was supposed to be a boom bam, but John Carpenter liked the way that they rehearsed it, Keith David and Roddy Piper. And so he figured, okay, well, let's film it and see where it goes. And the fight, it was so long and drawn out because they're two old guys, you know, fighting. They get winded, and then they basically stop for a second or two. Then they go back to hitting each other. And they even spoofed it off South Park, I believe on the 4th season, when they did Timmy versus Jimmy, you know, fighting. They did the whole thing with that, you know, and that was fucking funny. You know, you have to admit, as a horror fan, that's kind of funny. And then the fact that Roddy Piper's a wrestler, he did wrestling moves, I thought that was just legit. It was kind of cool, you know. But originally, this whole movie was written in mind that instead of it being Roddy Piper, John Carpenter wanted Kurt Russell, because he did Escape from New York, Escape from L.A., all those, and he worked really closely with Kurt Russell with, what was it, The Thing, and so he wrote this story in mind with him, but obviously Kurt Russell didn't do it, so Roddy Piper jumped in on it, and they said that when Roddy Piper was filming this, and he was doing interviews, he wouldn't talk bad about anything about it, like, oh, do you think it's about the American government? He would never answer because he was technically on a visa, you know, and I don't blame him, you know, because I mean, filming a movie like that, like, oh shit, yeah, I think it is, you know, ruin his chances and everything. No. But it's a very iconic film about aliens living amongst us, and it's basically you don't know what it is out there in the real world. You know, it's crazy. It's really fucking crazy right now. You know, and I know I'm crazy. I'm the SaWGuy and everything, but when you hear about shit, see shit like that in the news, it's like, whoa, okay, can't help put two and two together. But they live, it's really iconic. It's really up there and par as far as being, I don't know, it's genre bending. John Carpenter's always been good at that. But with They Live, I know for a fact, like, I believe, and there, you know, I was talking to a few people on Facebook and Twitter about this. Everyone's asking me, do you think there should be a remake to it? Do you think that movie was so iconic it can never be redone again? And you all are going to go crazy with this and type it in the comments and everything. Let me all know. But fuck yeah, they should do a remake. You know why they should do a remake or a sequel? Because, like I said, I'm going to go back to what I said again. Look at the world we live in. Look at how everything is. I would say if somebody, now I'm pitching this out there, and if it happens, give the SaWGuy credit for this, alright? This is my idea if I did the remake. I would make it so that way it takes place in this time. Donald Trump's the leader of everything. We all don't know that. You know, I mean, I'm not bashing on government or anything. This isn't political. This is a horror channel, so give me a second, you know. Basically, Donald Trump, he would be like the leader of everything and basically would control everything. And he would have normal people working alongside of him, stirring up the pot, basically, like with the gun rights movement or with the civil rights movement. Things like that are going on right now in our society. And basically, somebody comes along, finds out the secret, and boom, you have a horror film, right? Wouldn't that be a good remake? I mean, that's just, whoa. I mean, that shit still holds up to this day. And when the original They Live came out, Ronald Reagan was in office, and they basically, this whole movie was kind of more or less like poking fun at the government or like the political system, how it's, you know, I wouldn't say dirty, I would say more corrupt. you know, and I'll get into the zombies and how they look in a second. But anyways, he wanted to he wanted to capitalize on all that corruption and everything. Which brings me back down to the aliens right now and how they look. I might have said zombies. Did I say zombies? If I said zombies, let me know in the comments because I might have fucked up. But basically, I was reading on my notes. John Carpenter, he wanted to have the aliens more like human/zombie look, but at the same time, he wanted them to look like corruption. You know, the fucked up eyes, the big teeth, the squiggly skin. And the fact that he did it in black and white was just whoa, you know. The fact that he did it completely different. Not too many people did the black and white thing in different scenes in the same movie. But he was one of the ones that kind of engineered it a little bit, so that way, I mean, it obviously cut down on effects, you know, made it cheaper, but the fact that he was doing what he did, where Roddy Piper would put on the sunglasses, everything was black and white, and you could see who was a real person, who was an alien kind of deal, and it was pretty cool how he did that, but he wanted to match, like, the aliens to look more like about corruption, because that's what they were. The aliens were there to corrupt what we were as a society, and they were going to take over. And that's what this whole movie's about. And you can make an argument and a point about that right now, what's going on in our world, but, I mean, if you think about it, that'd be a damn good remake. I'd go and see that movie. I don't know about y'all. Would you see that remake? So, I'm probably seeing, like, some people liking it, some people disliking it, but I'll tell you what, if that movie comes out, you remember you heard it first on the SaWGuy podcast, I was the crazy one that came with the idea. Boom, right? But anyways, that movie, it's, man, not enough good things I could say about that. And some of you guys saw my skit, you guys listening on the audio side of it, I did a little skit where I actually wore a mask that I made of, it's a Donald Trump mask, but I kind of tweaked it up a little bit to kind of look like Billy or Saw, so that way it's a SaWGuy version of Trump mask. And it was kind of like my wink at one of the scenes in the movie where it shows Roddy Piper, he's watching a TV, and it shows a political figure. It never showed who it was, but it showed a political figure, and he was talking about politics, and he had a sign behind him that said obey. And he's talking about making, you know, rights this, we're going to do these rights, that rights, and Roddy Piper would say, oh yeah, you know, that's all bullshit, we all knew that was, you know. And that was basically what my whole scene was. Not trying to point out any fun on anything like that, but if you've seen They Live, you know where I'm going with it, you know, because I'm all about the horror films. But anyways, like I said, if you've never seen They Live, I can tell you right now, you used to be able to find that movie everywhere. Not so much now. I mean, every now and then it might pop up in Halloween time, like at, you know, your big stores like Target and Walmart and shit. But if you see that movie on DVD, it's usually a couple bucks. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's for sure got to be on Amazon somewhere, or occasionally they'll put it on Netflix. But I recommend seeing that movie. It'll open your eyes on things. Because I know when I talk to people about They Live, they look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? They Live? What? I've never seen that movie. Then you describe it to them like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. Yeah. But they never really gave a name to the aliens. They just called them they. While we sleep, they live, you know? While we sleep, they take over. And that's basically what the whole premise of this whole movie was about. And with this movie, it really stood out because of so many different factors. I mean, it's a social horror film, but also sci-fi, but also suspense and thriller. But it basically plays on so many of real humanistic fears that make this such a standing film. You could watch this film in the 80s and still be scared. You could watch this film now and still be scared or have that anxiety built up. Like, okay, is the government really like this? Is there people out there like that? You know, and then just one thought and just, you know, there goes the whole screws and everything, right? And that's what makes this film really damn good. Not too many people give it credit, especially, you know, I mean, everybody remembers Roddy Piper for that scene, you know, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And he's done some other films. I didn't look up too much any of the other films, but his main iconic role was always the fact that he played Nada in They Live. Keith David, it kind of really jumped up for him. You know, he started getting a little bit more roles. Meg Foster, a lot of people don't remember her, but she plays more recently. She's done 31. She was the old lady in 31. You know, now that she's older and everything like that. Because I think at the time she was in her 40s when she filmed it. But she's still around acting, still doing horror films, like always, you know. And it's, Like, it's such a trip seeing that film. It really is. If you've never seen it, SaWGuy here is recommending you to go see that movie, because you will not be disappointed. There is a lot of slow parts into it, you know, with all the talking and the conspiracy theories and shit like that, but it's got to build up to a good point to get you hooked. And that's how John Carpenter has always done his films. Always, you know. You can look at it that way with Halloween, The Thing, everything else that he's done too, you know. But that's basically one of my favorite films, because I remember seeing this film. The first time I saw this film, I saw it on the Sci-Fi Channel when I was 13. So this is a long time ago, you know. And I never knew what the name of the movie was, but I've always loved the iconic alien, where you see him on the podium and he's talking about politics and shit. Then you see how Rowdy Piper puts on the actual sunglasses for the first time, and you see all these billboards and everything are all white with the big bold text, obey, marry and reproduce, you know. You would see like all these hidden subliminal messages in between things, you know, like in the money, like the guy's holding the cash or the actual $1 bill. This is your God. It speaks volumes. It's like, whoa, okay, you know, okay, I could deal with that. This is a good film, you know. But you know, now I don't think you'll ever see this movie play on TV very often. If they do, it's usually kind of tied in during Halloween time and things like that. You know, with all the craziness in the world and all the stuff that's going on, it's just, I don't see it, because then it makes people think things, you know. I'm not here to make you think. I'm here to kind of talk to you about horror films and get you to think like, oh shit, that can't be scary because this could happen, you know. And, you know, that's my take on it. That's the SaWGuy's take, you know. But honestly, it's a really good film, really good actors, good acting. Special effects, you didn't need a film like this to have all kinds of special effects. They did a damn good job on the makeup. I couldn't find much on the makeup stuff, but, you know, it's more or less, you know, I'll have to look it up and then post it on there later and see who did all the makeup and all the visual effects. I know John Carpenter, he sketched it out, but I don't know if he did, like, he didn't do the makeup, obviously, but I know he had his hand in it. But anyways, you know, there's also, too, like, with They Live, with it still being iconic, if you go on Google and you type in They Live, you'll see a lot of crazy shit on there. And I think the funniest thing is seeing is, like, the way how they do the alien faces over, you know, big figures, famous people. You know, when Obama became president, they did one with Obama. When Kim Kardashian supposedly broke the internet with that, you know, booty shot or whatever, with her popping the bottle of wine, they did a picture of her dressed as the alien, or They Live, you know. And you still see it. The art out there, like the alien, the design and everything is just amazing. If you see the art, if you like dark art and things like that, and you're into horror art, you'll see a lot of They Live. I forgot the name of the artist, but he's the one who has his own company called Obey, and it was like a skater brand, and it had Andre the Giant's face on there. That's where he got the name from. Obey was because of They Live, you know. And you'll still see a lot of different things about it out there, just not a whole lot. Nobody really talks about it. It's kind of undergroundish still a little bit, but if you've ever get a chance to see this movie, check it out. I swear you will not be disappointed on it. Not at all. I wasn't. You know, and that was shit years ago when I first saw it, and I'm still talking about it now, including this episode. But I had to bring this episode up, you know, for episode number 13. It's always iconic with the lucky number 13. What better way to do it than They Live, you know? Talk about everything that's going on and all that other shit, and the craziness that's in our world that could be followed kind of similar like this, you know. There's a lot of strong correlation to it. There's a lot of hidden meanings to it. Let me know what you guys think about it. What's your meaning behind it? Do you guys think that the remake would be good? Would a remake not be good? Would a sequel be better? Should, you know, honestly, before Rowdy Piper died, I think this would have been a damn good remake and a sequel. But now that he's passed on, I think it's iconic enough to where they would have to restart from scratch and build it back up and do it as a reboot. That would suck if they do it as a sequel, you know, not with him around anymore. But I think it would do good. It really would, you know. It's a different film. It's odd. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know my episodes are only 30 minutes. I go on and on talking more about the in-depth meanings and everything like that, but, you know, I see the little clicker down over here, and it's, you know, already at 29 minutes, so I'm like, ah, shit. But who knows? Maybe I might do a part 2. Maybe they might do a remake. You know, who knows? We'll see. I'll keep you guys posted on it, but thank you for tuning in to the SaWGuy podcast. As always, I'm the SaWGuy. That's all I got, and I'm out. Tune in to, you know, the next episode, episode 14. Haven't decided to announce it yet, but it's going to be another good one, so stay tuned on it, but thank you for tuning in.